All right, we are on chapter 4445. We are still working with U substitution, and now we're going to discuss how to change our limits of integration during a U substitution. So we've talked about if you have your composite function as your integrand and you have that derivative with it, we can use the U substitution. But when we did that in an indefinite integral. Now we're going to want to do it with a definite integral, and we're going to try to avoid going back to x, that back substitution. We're going to just keep it all in u. All right, you do have a choice there. There may be a direction set that just asks you to do both to make sure you have the skill set. All right, so same technique here. We're going to take our u for the composite function and take my derivative of u. I'm going to take my derivative of the right side with the dx. I'm going to need to force a 4 and counter it with a 1/4. I've got my 4x dx, which I know is going to represent my du. I've got my 1/4 out in front. I have my square root of u in the denominator, and the only thing that is different right now is now we have limits of integration. So the 0 is represented in the variable x. So if I want to change that over to u, I need to evaluate my u function with a 0 in for x. I need to evaluate my u function for the upper limit of 2 for the same reasoning. It'd be like, again, if the inches and feet example. So if we were going to go from 0 to 2 feet, and now we're going to transfer that to inches, I'm going to want that to go from 0 to 24 to represent that same space. All right, so now my new limits of integration are going to be 1 and 9. And now I can avoid the idea of going back into x and using that back substitution technique that we had to do before for the indefinite integral. So my u now, right, I'm considering my integrand here to be u to the negative 1/2. So when I go up 1, I've got u to the half. I multiply by that reciprocal, which is going to give me 1/2 square root of u. Just mentally, I think I'll be faster seeing the square root notation. So then I've got 1/2 times the quantity of 3 minus 1. All right, so then my area is going to be just a 1. All right, I'm going to show you the second way. Okay, so here we changed the limits of integration. So what if we chose not to? All right, well, you can't leave the x limits in the problem. That would not be correct. So you can leave it open-ended like I did here. There's nothing up top or bottom. So now when I take my antiderivative, I'm still going to get my 1/4. I'm just copying from up above here. I'm still going to have my 1/2 square root of u, but now I'm going to choose to back substitute to go back to my x. So my x was really 1 plus 2 x squared. All right, so now I'm going to have this value here. So my 1/2 square root of 1, I just had to rewrite it because I ran out of screen space. And I'm going to go back and evaluate from my x limits. So if I put a 2 in there, right, I'm going to have the square root of 9 minus the square root of 1, which is still going to give me my 3 minus 1, which is still going to give me the area of 1. So the top way in green here, we changed the limits to evaluate in u. The bottom way in black, we did the antiderivative in terms of u, but then we back substituted in terms of x and used x values. If you choose to do that, you need to leave your limits open-ended. If you have x values here with a u integrand that is incorrect, you will be docked. All right, moving on here to example 13. So now I've got a little u substitution here, right? My argument is 2x, so then I've got du is 2 dx. So same idea, I'm going to force my 2, counter with my half. So now I know I've got 1/2 I'm not changing an x here yet. I'm not sure I haven't really thought about the trig functions to be honest with you. All right, so then I've got u cotangent of u du. So I know if I'm thinking of the secant function, because I feel like it looks familiar, if I take the derivative of secant, then I would get secant x tangent x. So I'm noticing that I have a cosecant, cotangent. So then that would come from a cosecant of x going backwards, but we know the cofunctions are going to be a negative version of itself, so I would need a negative here and a negative out in front. All right, so now that I did that, I realized that I did change to u's. I was kind of distracted I was thinking about the trig functions as I was talking. So I cannot have the same upper and lower with those u's, so let's get rid of those guys. And let's go back in. So now I need to change my limit. So if I evaluate u of pi twelfths, that means I've got 2 times pi twelfths is pi sixths. And then if I evaluate u of pi fourths, I'm just putting it into the u equals x function here. So the 2 is there because that's what's in that problem. All right, so now I know from my setup already the -1 is my constant out in front. I know that my antiderivative is going to be a cosecant of u. I'm going to evaluate that cosecant from pi halves to pi sixths. I do know that cosecant is not something I memorized. So cosecant would be 1 over the sine. So I'm just going to write it as 1 over the sine. And then I'm going to just copy it down one more time. So then I've got my -1/2. I'm going to just bracket that off. So sine of pi halves is 1. So 1 over 1 is a positive 1. Minus the sine of pi sixths, which is 1/2. So then that would be the reciprocal there would be a 2. So now I've got -1/2 multiplied by -1. So then my final answer would be a half. All right, so even and odd functions. Some of us, we've talked about this already, just to give you the foresight. Some of this stuff spirals around. So if you know you have an even function, an example of an even function is your quadratic. So if I go from the negative to the positive of the same value, you're going to have symmetry there, especially when your function, right, is centered at the origin. You can have a horizontal shift. You've got to be aware that we are centered at the origin. So I can change this integration to start at 0 and just go to the right side, because usually the right side's easier for us because it's a positive version. So I would just be calculating out this quadrant 1 section and then just doubling it because both sides are going to be equivalent. The advantage there is when you evaluate with a 0 in your lower limit, quite often that evaluation is going to be a 0, so you do half of the work. Otherwise, you're going to tend to double up the same numbers, just maybe positives and negatives of each other. All right, so here's your symmetry test, if you remember that from pre-calculus. If you have an odd function, and currently they have just your basic line, but if you needed to see more of a curve or a bend, right, you can think of your cubic, because that is an odd function. So if we did the same thing, if I went from -a to positive a, it would represent the same space, but we know if you are in quadrant 3, you've got considered a negative area and then a positive area in quadrant 1. So together, those would always add to 0 because they're balanced from each other. So if you see those shortcuts, you're more than welcome to use them. So for example, you can see how complicated this equation looks like, but it is an odd function, and we are symmetric. So by applying that knowledge, I know the area is 0. you're more than welcome. You can do some U substitutions. You can do a lot there. You can make that problem very complicated, or you can just realize that it is an odd function. We are symmetric about that origin. We're centered there, so you're done. All right, next one, we can see it's an even function. We have a vertical shift, but that doesn't change my vertex. So I can consider going from 0 to +1 instead and doubling it up. And you can see, being a polynomial function, that when I do evaluate that lower limit of 0, everything will go to 0. So it does shrink my process. So I'm going to have my antiderivatives. And now, especially with the 1 and 0, it's really nice because the 1s are pretty quick because your powers are going to be a 1. All right, so I'll use grouping symbols just for visual effect. Right, there's my f of b. If I put a 0 in for all of those, it's going to be a 0. So then I've got 2 multiplied by 2 1/5. 2 1/5, better known as 11/5. So if I double that, then I got 22/5. All right, and then over here I've got my odd function again. And we are symmetric, so hopefully you realize again that my odd function is going to be a 0. If you don't realize that because you didn't read the box up top, you're going to spend a lot of time filling out that page. All right, we're all good here. See you later.